Today I thought we would continue with our little meme discussion. And by that I mean psychology and fighting games, which I guess is not a meme. It's it's very important, and there's a reason why I split these up into 2 days, right? There's a very specific reason, and we're gonna get into that in a second. So yesterday I talked a lot about how your feelings, there's a lot of things that can get in the habit or in the way of you, thinking correctly and healthy about fighting games. For this one, this part of the discussion is only for fighting games, right? Like, this is basically how these things can impact your, how you perceive these things, right? But there's a much bigger layer, and we're gonna add a bunch of lines here to really emphasize it, right? So this is going to be less. Oh shit! I actually did a full line. That's crazy. Let's talk about the other side of this, right? And this is less about fighting games and more about you as a human being, right? You as a person. Now, this is kind of the hard part, right? Recognizing all of this is not necessarily hard, right? Like, you feel something and you can kind of hone in on it, right? Like, let's say you play, you lose, you get angry. You're actively feeling this, right? Now, let's talk about why you feel this, right? This is the core principle of not just improving in fighting games, but improving your mental health and where you are. You know what I mean? This is key to all of that. You cannot improve all this without doing this, right? I've talked a little bit about it. This is ego, right? But we didn't really go into detail of how it works, right? Where it goes. Put on the glasses. So when it comes to this sort of thing here, you play a video game, you lose, you get angry. I meant you get angry, but you angry also works. Let's say you get angry, you're like, I don't want to get angry, right? I don't want to get angry. What is your solution to this? I want to check the chat real quick. Take a break. Acceptance. I like acceptance. The person that I would agree with here is Bitta. Bitta, I really like. This is how I would approach it, right? It's the same with losing, right? Let's say if you lose, you think about, how could I do that better? What should I do better? And likewise, if you're unhappy that you get angry, sometimes things like taking breaks, stepping away from things, whatever, that will help you in the moment, but it won't solve your fundamental why you get angry. Sometimes it's just you had a bad day, you're pissed off about something else. That's understandable. But let's say if this is a consistent problem, if this is you, be honest. You play in tower, I want to floor up. You do it, you get angry, or you get sad, you're just I'll take a break and do it. I'll try again later. And then you do it again later, and the same thing happens. The same thing happens over and over again. You just keep getting sadder, you keep getting angry, to a point where maybe I'd say more than once a week, assuming you play multiple times a week. So in fighting games, if you get upset or you can't stop something, you're training with the solution, right? This is a bit harder, right? Because how do you, sometimes these are deep fundamental issues or problems that you felt since a kid even, right? It's important to step back and really look at your internalized feelings around this, right? I'll give you an example. X player is better than me, I should say, is really good because they beat me in bracket. I disliked it because it reminded me of when I lost to them. Maybe I feel confident that next time we played, they would never beat me. This is a compliment by nature, right? This is a compliment. If this person can beat Deb, they must be good. If you are a benchmark for what makes someone good, that does not mean you're bad. Here's how I interpreted it, right? And it reminded me of when I lost to them, which, maybe I was, again, disappointed or upset at the time. But see, even the basis of what I wrote next is combative. Maybe I feel confident next time we play, they'd never touch me, right? They'll never beat me. This is a sign, in my opinion, when someone is they're feeling ways, basically. There's definitely been players I've beaten who I probably should not have beaten in tournament. Sometimes people that have beaten me that they probably wouldn't have beaten me on a better day, right? But this is the aspect of tournaments. But the point is, regardless of anything, it made me feel bad. When I really thought about this, I was this doesn't really make fucking sense. And I'm going to give you a kind of concept that I've realized through playing fighting games. Typically, how a lot of people think, they act or see something, they feel something, the end. You lose, right? You get angry, and maybe you lash out because you're angry. And of course, some people are good at holding it in. You know, I've been in the fighting game community for a long time. I've seen some toss stakes, right, from not just people in the fighting game community in general, but, you know, in Guilty Gear. I've seen it all. Here's how I think the healthiest way to process things is. They act or see something, they feel something, they think about what makes them feel that way. Very, very important. Again, like it, you know, criticizing yourself, even though the process of recognizing yourself as ill can be bad, right? Like, you know, sometimes, you know, you may think, oh, maybe I'm just like, I got the flu. And then in actuality, you got like some terrible disease, right? Sometimes recognizing that is a problem. Sometimes recognizing that can hurt. When I was younger, I was a big shithead. Like, I'll be honest, like I was a pretty big shithead. And regardless like of how I joked or how I like shit on people, right? I was a very catty teenager. I was basically, I could star in the movie Mean Girls. Like that was a slot available to me for sure. So when I ended up getting to the point where I was like, you know, this is how I feel, and then I looked at what I was actually doing, you know, it hurts. Like you can think, well, I thought I was nice or something, or like, you know, maybe I wanted to be like a better person or whatever, and then I just wasn't, right? Like I just wasn't. That's all there was to it. I just was not. This is something that I talked about with like skill in fighting games. I think a bad person is one that refuses to acknowledge what they're doing, but a good person is someone that acknowledges it and wants to change it. You know what I mean? If you're bad, you want to acknowledge you are bad. You don't want to just think you're good and live off the feeling that you could be good. You know what I mean? You want to be good. That's like a little meta, but you get the point. You don't want to live in a world where you just think you're good. You want to be a good player. Accepting where you are is the first step of getting where you want to be. Perfect. That's yes. I'm going to even write it at the top. Some people just like being casuals, right? Like there's some people that like want to be honorable and shit. Like someone sent me a screenshot from a YouTube comment. I don't even know where it is, but they were complaining about me. They're complaining about me as Happy Chaos not going in for honor. This is like the comment. Came here to see an actual fight, not this guy get chipped away by this cheap-ass character. Yes, approach the character who can possibly two-touch you all for the sake of honor. They'll definitely go down well. Probably not, and you're right. It is much better going down by Nago or any other character than getting shot, stunned, and having your resources burned from far away without any kind of resistance. What this is relevant for is like some people don't care about executing perfectly. They want what feels most fun and what looks most fun. And some people think that you always have to be at the top of your class. Like you always have to excel. You always have to be the best, right? And you don't. Like realistically, think about where you want to be or what you want to do. Aim for something specific, not just best. Best is typically a feeling you can preserve rather than a status you get from other people. Does this make sense? If I just say I want to be a better person, like what does that mean? Like let's think about it. Like what made me feel like a bad person after I viewed it, right? Like maybe I was too catty, right? It was too, whereas like, you know, that's something I'd acknowledge. I'd put a stamp on it. I put a stamp on it. I acknowledged it and I went from there, right? Like I'd say, well, I just won't do that anymore. I will specifically stop myself from doing it. Isn't trying to preserve a feeling more difficult though, since they are very fleeting? Yes. That's exactly the point. And a lot of people are saying like, I want to be the best fighting game player. Well, what makes you the best fighting game player? A lot of people, when they start fighting games, they perceive that to be the best at fighting games, it's acknowledgement of it, right? Like acknowledgement of your success. But the problem is people just won't do it. Like people, like when I say a feeling I can preserve, I don't mean like I feel good from winning. What it should mean is like, you know, I have struggled with anti-airing, and then from there, like, you know, I focus on anti-airing. I do anti-airs a lot. That not just shows that I've improved, it feels good, right? It's a feeling that you can preserve. It's something that you have done and improved on. I can still remember the first time I acknowledged, like, you know, oh, I was going too fast on neutral. I want to slow down and react. I can still remember the day that I really did that. August 24th, 2015. I can remember it to the fucking date. It's something that carries on with your playstyle that you will always have. Once you have that, once you've done it, like what's stopping you from looking for anti-heroes anytime, right? And it eventually gets to the point where you don't even think about it, right? It's just natural. If you play for other people's praise, there is a barrier of how far you can essentially grow. So let me give you an example. Player A, we're gonna call them Tommy. Tommy Gamer is their name. Tommy Gamer loves watching. Give me a top player, a random top player. I think Daigo is kind of what we want. He loves watching Daigo. Tommy Gamer loves watching Daigo. No matter what game he plays, Tommy Gamer will always believe that Daigo would be the best, you know, the best of the game. I know this is especially weird with how, like, you know, people shit on Daigo, but like, think of it like this, right? This is a product of Tommy Gamer looking up to Daigo as a fighting player. A very new player kind of perspective, right? The less you understand about fighting games, the more you tend to view skill as a blob that does not really, that transfers. This is typically where a lot of people sit. Like, whether you know it or not, this is the problem with acknowledgement, right? Now I'm gonna give you another example. Player B. We're gonna call them Danube Dan. So Danube Dan loves Skullgirls, like full cat Skullgirls. He likes pretty lady. Danube Dan hates Sonic Fox. Ignore the fact of why, just Danube Dan hates Sonic Fox for whatever reason. Because Danube Dan hates Sonic Fox, their natural inclination is to discredit their accomplishment. Even if Sonic Fox wins every tournament, Danube Dan may say their character's broken, they got lucky, or spammy Fox. Danube Dan hates Sonic Fox because Danube Dan loves Skullgirls and the Kill Sage. Sonic Fox beat up the Kill Sage. This is so common, it would fry your brain to think this. Oh, I don't like this person because they always beat the person I like. Sometimes it can be like a mild like dislike, but then it's like, oh, I hate seeing them in tournament. Or someone you look up to loses to someone specifically a lot that you do not like, you make excuses for them or discredit the opponent. But this can happen in a lot of situations, right? Like this, there's a lot of aspects where this can stem from, where this can come from. Typically, the lower level the player, the more actively they dislike someone for interrupting their perceived notion of how something should act. This is where we get to like spammy spammers, spam, ruining my game. This is the problem with idolizing the concept of being the best as a status everyone recognizes. You will never be the best everyone recognizes, ever. You want to have something that you can actively feel as improvement. This is kind of where I want to talk about my fighting game process, right? Because my end game goal ever was to make a top 8, right? Ever. I just wanted to make a top 8. First tournament, I made it out of pool. I got top 32. I got 17. After a few more tournaments, I made my first top 8 at Proxy. Why was my goal to make a top 8? Like, what matters about that? Because I perceived top 8 players as good no matter what. I was unhappy because I didn't reach my goal, even though it was unrealistic to make top 8 in your first tournament. However, because some people I could beat made top 8, I felt like I should have been in top 8. Ignoring tournament brackets, how things change in tournament, etc. I viewed the fact that they made top 8 and I didn't as bad luck. Bad, stupid, dumb brain. At this point, it is Potemkin. It's actually Potemkin brain, because Potemkin brain, Exert Potemkin brain, always made you think I would win if I played a better character. Wow. At this point, I recognized that making top 8 did not equal being perceived as good. Thus, I wanted to win a tournament. I realized top 8s didn't mean anything to me because they didn't mean anything to anyone else, right? So you can already see the chain here. Like, a lot of my progress when I was newer was I put a lot of weight on what other people thought, but not a lot of people, like on my own journey. A lot of people's journeys start as, I want to be recognized as good. The problem is the goalpost is constantly shifting, right? It's constantly shifting no matter what. So like, and this is what happened with me, right? Every tournament I played in, I was not happy, right? Even with my ending score, even making top 8 or like 5th with like a character like Soul, who Soul was good, but like in tournament, he was like explosive, right? He was one of the more explosive characters that weren't as reliable. I mean, I guess like, I don't remember like when this was specifically, but basically by this time he was considered like lower on the tier. So eventually I win my first tournament in Michigan Masters. I think I beat Bears, Mr. K, and Fu there, right? These are all good players. These are all good players I play in bracket, but I discredited myself. I'm at this point, I've already like, because I've established this sort of like mental where like how people think about it, how people interpret it, I discredited my own win of like, you know, it's like 100 people, which in Exert it's like not huge, but it's not small either. It's like, okay. I discredit myself because a smaller tournament. It's a regional. I placed 4th at Combo Breaker. That feels more validating than winning a tournament because of the prestige Combo Breaker has. I'm still unhappy, by the way. Eventually it gets to the point I win Evo. I'm still unhappy with this win because it feels like, I don't even know. Like, honestly, at this point, because I've considered a lot of what people say, Evo felt good to win at first. I went to my bedroom, had an edible, and read Twitter for 2 hours, which made that feel good. Next day, I didn't care. It felt fleeting, right? This was truly fleeting. Again, this is all like, this whole circle is through being perceived as a good player, perceived as like someone that wanted to be perceived as good, right? And this is something that guided me a lot when I was a newer player, younger, but as I've gotten older, I've realized all of this I don't care about. I don't care if people think I'm bad or I'm good. I mean, no matter what, like, I had essentially cycled this to where the only time I would feel good about winning something is if I beat every god Japanese player in the same tournament, which logistically is not realistic because I had gone in the cycle, right? I didn't just play for myself, I played for other people's validation. This is naturally bad. This is bad. I'm gonna put this in bold, bad. I didn't celebrate my wins and let myself feel accomplished. I just felt meh. Obviously, you don't want to feel like overconfident or like feel over, you don't want an ego to spread from this, right? But the problem is, like, because of this, I had an ego because I felt my position as a viewed strong player was easily challenged. Or this like got better as time went on, but you can see kind of the pattern of what I'm talking about here, right? Like a lot of it, like if of course like you don't really like, I couldn't think about this. I have to win because I feel like people think I suck, right? It'll just be like, you know, I feel like I have to win. If I lose, I feel bad and I have to fight over it, right? The critical problem here, I attached my ego to my success in this fighting game because I didn't have much else to feel good about. Right? I was a lot younger and stupider. Right? We can talk about like social media is like an entirely different section, right? It's an entirely different section. You always see people's best highlights, right? So like, for example, in fighting games, you may think this person tweets, I won this tournament, I won this tournament, I won this tournament, I won this tournament. And you just think, oh, they're just winning everything, right? When in actuality, they're just highlighting the peaks, right? They're highlighting their like, you know, their greatest moments. But through our interpretation of it, we feel like, oh, that's just their day-to-day. Mine's not as good as that, right? And that makes them feel depressed. A video I watched earlier that made me think. Someone made a meme video, or like a meme comment, I should say, about being trapped in isolation for a year for $1 billion. Did you guys ever see that? Right? And they talk about like how like his perception of things like gets disrupted and like everything. Yeah, the light's on constantly. But like, it's like, by the end of it, he's so fucked up. Something he says at the end, it's very interesting to me.
In the room, I was fine being alone. This is where I've been living. But then, near the end, as I started to anticipate coming out and being able to talk to people and share my experience, I realized how important that was. If you only have your own experiences, you're not fully having them. You have to have someone else to listen to them and react to them, and then you've fully experienced them.
I really like this statement for, like, in the context of what we're talking about here, okay? Like, everything we're talking about here. I really like the idea that, like, you know, you may struggle with these aspects, or, like, you know, you may struggle with anything, but that basically, like, I really like the idea that, like, discussion and stuff like that can really, really help you get through these struggles, even if it's something that you are kind of struggling with. I think we also kind of undervalue how important it is, you know what I mean? That's basically it. That's like all I really want to talk about. Now, you know what time it is. It's time to game.